Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ahmad Fitra Nanda Dava Vandana. So, for today's topic, I would like to discuss further about how to write and publish a research paper. So, before that, we get to know about the aim of the research paper itself. So, ideally, about the research paper is to share a research finding and discoveries with the hope of improving knowledge base. And for the particularly, it's also to get funding, to get promoted, to get recognition, and the last is for knowledge sharing and achievement. Here is some of the aim for the research paper itself. And about the research paper itself is about how you produce it. So you are rated but by what do you produce, not by what you attempt. And for the getting a paper published, so basically the journal for the paper is like a competition itself. And the competition for space in journal is intense and the cost of publication is also high. And some of the journal had rejection rates are vary. Some of them for the journal also recognize about the 50% of the rejection, and some of the journal also like 65% of the rejection. It depends on the journal and it depends on the rate of the journal itself. And some of the tips to get or to make sure that your paper can enter the journal and can be in the journal is the first one is the know the journal itself, about the journal, about the editor, and also submit the paper. And the second is about pay close attention to spelling, grammar, and punctuation. This is the crucial, like the crucial step in the publishing or writing a paper. And the third one is to make sure that references are comprehensive and accurate. And the fourth is avoid careless mistakes. So this is also important to avoid any kind of careless mistake. And the last is about read and confirm to instruction for authors. So yeah, you have to read and confirm about the instruction for author. So it is like your guidance to make sure that you can enter the following journal. And what constitute good science? So basically about the good sign itself. So we can also know about the novel. Novel is a new and not resembling something formerly known or used. Can be novel but not important. But in mechanistic, it's like testing a hypothesis, determining the fundamental process involved in or responsible for an action, reaction, and other natural phenomena. And descriptive is about to describe how things are, but does not test how things work, and our hypotheses are not tested. And it is like the Bloom's taxonomy of publishing. So it is from the Elsevier's advice. It is one of the reputable journal about the triangle about the Elsevier's advice. The first one is about the evaluation, about the how to accessing the theories, the comparison of idea, evaluating outcome, solving, judging, and recommending rafting, and others like synthesis. Yeah, some of them it is also important about that, about the level, the criteria from the Elsevier advice from the evaluation, synthesis, analysis, application, comprehension, and knowledge. And what constitute a good journal? So some of the criteria to determine about the good journal. The first one, the impact factor. It's about the average number of time published paper are cited up to 2 years of after publication. So it is about the impact from the journal itself. And the second is about the immediacy index. It's about the average number of times published paper are cited during year of publication. And for the third is the lead time or incubation time. So it is about the average time taken for a paper from receipt to publication. And this is the last about the ISSN. This is about the processing international standard serial or book or number. It is also a meaning of recognize. So some of them is the criteria to determine the journal is good. And for the hardest part about to write the paper is to getting started. So you have to start it by your own, or you have to start it by yourself. And for the paper itself, there are some of the order that had to be noticed about the right in the order for the paper itself, about the title, the abstract and keyword, and introduction, method, result, discussion, and acknowledgement reference. So you have to write it in the order. And about the materials and methods for the writing paper itself is best to begin writing when experiment leads somewhere. So you writing based your experience or experiment, and it should be detailed enough so result can be produced by others. So make sure that you can write it in detail. And for the reference publish method, where appropriate, so make sure also the reference also appropriate and you had to cite from others reference as well. And it is include regulated use approval information like toxic substance, use descriptive subheadings, you have to starting material, synthesis, material characterization. And this is the point about the introduction. So you have to build a case where why study is important or necessary. And you have to provide brief background about that and then state hypothesis or central question or them, or give a paragraph about what investigation proposed to do. So you have to make sure that your introduction is brief enough and detailed enough, because your introduction is your opening of your writing. So make sure that the reader can understand well from your introduction. So make sure the introduction is linked with your writing. And for the discussion, it's about the answering your question, your post, your introduction, and discuss the possible mechanism, discuss weakness and discrepancy about your discussion, about your topic. Explain what is new without exaggerating, and do not repeat discussion or speculate too much. So make sure that your discussion is also in fact, because it is prohibited to speculate too much with your own reasoning or your own talk. So make sure that it is in fact, and you have to discuss in possible in mechanism and discuss the weakness and discrepancy. And for the conclusion about the summary, the conclusions or the summary, it is in part of the conclusion, the summary perspective is also in the point of the implication, suggestion or for future work. So it is the important the part of the conclusion or summary. While in the reference, you have to set the relevant reference. You have to also be selective to based on credibility. Read the reference before referring. Do not misquote. Use correct style and format for journal. Cite patterns carefully. Don't misquote. So it is also important because the reference also link with the plagiarism itself. So make sure that your paper or your research journal is free from any kind of plagiarism or any kind of cheating. So make sure that you have to state relevant reference and do not misquote or do not, yeah, you have to correct your style and format for journal. And for the title itself, you have to determine whether the paper gets read, and avoiding long titles and avoid abbreviation. So you have to set a title format, but then you can also refer to the title format. It's like the effect of head on ice, or head melts ice, or the role of head in melting ice. And for the acknowledgement, so it's grant funding people who read in the paper or contribute to discussion and or idea. So people who give tools or problems technical and secretarial assistant. So after that, you have to make sure that your paper it is brief enough, detailed enough, and you have to avoid any kind of plagiarism. So make sure you can be, yeah, you can be best at your own to write a paper. So You have to revise it about your paper to make sure that revise the paper an author should participate only one is corresponding author. You have to review order of data presentation, polish the writing style. You have to double check the reference and look for typos, any kind of misspelling or misclicking, and double check spelling. It is in UK format or American format. And you have to make sure that your tense in your writing paper is consistent. Don't switch back on forth in the same paragraph. And about to develop a good writing style, you have to make sure that you can read well your written articles or to try to get good writers to review, or you can learn from editing change and learn editing and correcting symbol, learn proofreading and correcting, and good copy editing and formatting according to the journal requirement. And you have to avoid plagiarism. So to develop a good writing style, you can also refer from this, and you can also do on your own. And you have if you have a good mentor, you can ask him to yeah to correct your writing style and to give you some of the some of like the input or output for your for your paper. And about the journal paper format, so this is the some of the paper format. Yeah, we know that like the well known one like APA or others paper paper format journal as well. And for the submission of the paper journal, you have to make sure that you read instruction carefully and fill out all necessary forms sometimes before acceptance, copyright, transfer, conflict of interest, and you have to write covering letter. So and others, the last is the confirm receipt or follow up the communication or acknowledge it. And this is the process of a research paper, but the completion of research, preparation of manuscript, submission, assignment and review. So from that, it can be decided whether your paper is to head to revise or resubmit or accept or reject. And if it can be acceptance, so your paper can be publication, can be published. And for the responding to the reviewers, so you have to careful to prepare your response of each comment should be addressed, each change should be stated, highlight and be enthusiastic. And also you have to notice that some of the reviewer may be wrong, and you have to be thankful, thank to the reviewers, and do not respond the reviewer while upset. And you can get help from the other author and address the correction to the chief editor. So some of them is the some of the tips about the responding to the reviewer to make sure you didn't do something wrong or didn't do something that can be not helpful or not beneficial to your paper, and to reduce the probability of your paper can be declined or rejected. So that's all from me. Hopefully, it can be understandable. Maybe, and perhaps we can after that we can get any kind of further discussion after that. So the last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.